Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Watch Out for AGI podcast, your podcast that will alert you when we hit AGI. We haven't yet, so you need to continue to listen to our podcast until we say so. Then you can probably get off. We are two AI engineers who started a podcast as a side hobby. We are keeping it authentic here. This is how we discuss AI between each other. And we started doing weeklies where we would talk about what is going on and how not to miss the latest news, the latest models and best ways and practices to use AI. And we kept going and we are strong. It's been now nearly 6 months. We're running every week a weekly pod and it is paying. We're getting a lot of cool feedback from engineers that are interested in knowing how to make their flows better with AI. And a lot of people are really happy with the news. So we are really pumped here to keep things going. We are going to deliver the news every week. And I'm going to present my co-host here, Emric, coming to us from New York.
Yeah, in the middle of a factory where we are trying to build AGI right now.
Are you close?
Not too close because we still need to do some podcasts. So we're taking some time just for the podcast to get going.
Yes, last week we did do a large news session where we presented Llama 4, Scout, Maverick, and Behemoth, the open source models that dropped huge news.
I just want to say I saw this photo about an engineer from Meta that recently moved to OpenAI, and on his LinkedIn he really wrote, "I was not involved into Llama 4." So that really says to you that this Llama 4 was like a disaster.
Wow. I didn't get the chance to test it out. I saw the news after we talked about it that it was very subpar in terms of coding, which is the only thing that I'm interested in. I think a lot of the models are able to do conversational today. They're able to give you what you need. The coding and the, I would say, IQ level of a senior developer is what I'm interested in. And just to let you guys know what we're using here, it is mostly Sonnet from Anthropic, Claude Sonnet. The 3.7 model is going very strong. And I'm also trying out Gemini 2.5 Max.
No, Pro. There's no Max yet.
Okay, Pro. Max is what Sonnet has, actually. I made a mistake. Max is a larger context to throw in your entire code base.
Hey, talking about Max, have you heard about Claude Max? Because I heard that they released a subscription and people were like super angry because they nerfed the normal subscription and they created this new subscription like to like lock people into paying more.
I haven't seen on Anthropic's page the Max. I do see it in Cursor that there's a Max option. That one goes for 5 cents per request. We did cover that in one of our previous podcasts, and I was telling you guys that I did one flow, which would cost me 4 cents. With a regular sonnet, it cost me 65 cents, and I reverted all the changes because it was absolute crap. So that was a waste of 65 cents. It could have been thrown in the market. But yeah,
That
65 cents, if you put it in an AI startup, you might make $1 million today.
I just wanted to say, yeah, the Max plan was released 6 days ago, and it's a $100 tier and a $200 tier to be able to use Claude as much as you want.
We're seeing two different things at the same time here. Prices for models is going down with the DeepSeek movement. Prices of subscriptions are on the rise. OpenAI has the $200 model, and Sonnet now has the Max version, which is a costly subscription. So the model itself is going to be cheaper, and the subscriptions are going to be, that just doesn't make too much sense to me. I think a lot of people will use the models to generate their wrappers and use the API to hit the model if the subscriptions go too high. You're basically paying for UI at this point.
Isn't it like the first class in the planes? Like they have the same supply, but they're trying to make people that have money to pay more by just providing them more access to the API. Like we don't have new things to come with you guys, but we can make you pay to get more access to our API. That's what we can provide you.
Personally, my subscriptions go as I have a Grok from X. I have OpenAI. The set of products is very complete with the voice, the application, the web application, the Mac application. The API is a very, very large spectrum of products. I do not have Anthropic as a subscription, but I use their models more than anything else. What about you, Emmerich?
Yeah, a bit the same as you. I pay for Cursor every month, and the advantage of Cursor, I think it's because they use these diff models, like specifically Claude is just like printing the diffs, so it makes like possible to do a bunch of requests, a bunch of agentic requests to save on inference. And basically, I think even if I was paying for Claude, I would not being able to use Claude that much as I do with Cursor. I don't know what kind of magic they are doing behind the scenes, but Cursor allows me to like keep going with my flow for days and days.
That said, a few sentiments seen in Twitter this last week and last 2 weeks. We should do a segment on sentiment, all right? Because there's a lot of sentiment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
One thing that I saw, I'm going to comment on the cursor stuff. One person that I follow said, I don't know what's going on here. Sometimes I ask the AI to do something and it tells you, well, that's easy. Let me show you how I would do it. And you need to do this. And it tells you to do it. And you're like, wait a second, who's boss here? I paid 4 cents for you to tell me how to do it. You're an agent. You're the one. The thing is that there have been a few modifications to Cursor's prompt, and you can see it when it happens. So you got to be careful when you update if you are ready to see the new prompts or not. If you're in a coding session where you need your version of Cursor, maybe don't update, wait a few days until that new version comes. A second sentiment that I've gotten is Google's Gemini is on the rise. Someone was saying that Sonnet is like your drunk friend that you're coding with. He might be smart, but he keeps on forgetting to install the libraries. He forgets to run the migrations. He debugs things that he forgot he needed to do things before debugging, like running migrations. Let's say you create a new feature that requires a migration and you don't run the migration, that is going to fail 100%. And then what happens? Let's start a debugging session. Well, why is it failing? Well, someone who is smart will say, oh yeah, I forgot to do the migration. It happens to humans, but that's why we have our machines. The guy was saying that he moved over to Gemini, and Gemini is getting really good at code. What do you think, Emmerich?
Yeah, so two things. This Gemini model is really good because he's thinking. So they will like not only giving you the first draft, but like actually thinking through the draft. And I don't know what the magic of DeepMind was here, but I think the thinking process is really great. You can see the thinking going forward, and every time I'm asking stuff, like they're actually like putting a lot of interesting steps to actually go through the final answer. So like the final output is really good. Also, as you said, when you have a big code base, you want to be able to give as much context as possible. And right now, Google is the only player that is able to use the context as well as they do. You have like some benchmarks that actually evaluating the quality of like long context output. And for now, Gemini 2.5 is the best in that regard. So they will actually leverage as much as possible the context that you provide. We will talk today about GPT-4.1. They recently released the 1 million context. Again, you can see that they still have to improve their usage of the long context. They can use it, but using it efficiently is different.
Yeah, we will get into the models that came out. I'm very interested in seeing what a million context parameter does to the day-to-day of a developer. I don't know if this is something that you want to use every time. Emmerich, do you have any insight on what it is to use a large context model but not use it fully? Let's say you have a context of 10,000 and you throw it into a million context. Does that change anything?
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Like the raw output of the model, like for all the models that were used before, were like stuck at 128. I think Claude was stuck at 128. And I think the quality of the output generally decreases with as much context as you're giving. The more you're giving context, the less the model is actually able to reference that context. So no, you're not, like the long context is not improving short context questions or requests.
We can get into a graph. We have a few graphs to show a bit later on OpenAI and the loss that incurs when you grow that context that you feed into the model, it does go down. The quality of the output does go down as you grow the context. Now, Emric, that's enough chit chat. Let's get into AI news.
Let's
We
go.
run AI news every week, and this will not change this week. It is a large week. There is a lot to talk about. And let's get started with the first news that is fresh off the printer. OpenAI's 4.1 model, a surprise model that dropped yesterday with a few new characteristics. So OpenAI launched 4.1, emphasizing improved coding and large and long context comprehension. They're also planning to release an open weight language model in the coming months, signaling a shift towards more accessible AI. That is the truth right there. The first thing that was mentioned, long context comprehension. I looked into their documentation. They have doubled the size of their context throughout the whole product line. 4.0 had 128, right? Something like
I
that.
think it had, yeah. Before we talk about the long context and everything, what do you think about the naming conventions? Like we were just doing 4.5 the week before, and now we are 4.1. Like, isn't it shit on confusing the naming scheme of OpenAI?
No, this does not change anything. In terms of naming, it's gotten worse. We're going back, forwards, sideways. I don't know if there's someone in marketing over there that actually cares. Maybe some other company will come in and rectify a naming schema, but OpenAI is definitely not the most obvious of the namers. So I rectify the window for GPT 4.1 is 1 million. The 4.0 had a window of 128 with a maximum output token of 16,000. The maximum output tokens of 4.1 and 4.1 nano are 32,768. Now, 4.1 comes in 3 different sizes: 4.1, 4.1 nano, and 4.1 mini. There are 3 price points, 3 different speeds, and 3 different intelligence factors. Let me share some insights on this one. No, forget about it.
About this, the concept of having different sizes of model, of course, exists for a long time. I think Gemini also has this Flash version and this Pro version. You know, I was for long asking myself, why would I ever use something else than Pro? Because I just want to have the best intelligence possible. But when you start to create like long pipelines, when you need to do like multiple prompts and piping the prompts into another prompt and etc., if the latency is important, you will see yourself like you cannot use something like 2.5 Pro in a long pipeline because like to get your final answer, you will get like 5 minutes. So here, the fact that OpenAI also creates multiple version is really useful for like the developers specifically.
If we run through a few things here regarding these 3 models, each model has its usage. Like you, as a developer, I don't want to use full capability for each purpose. I want speed sometimes, and I want intelligence sometimes. As you can see, Nano has the fastest speed with 5 bolts, and 4.1 has the slowest speed of them all. I don't know what that means. They don't give us tokens per second, which is something that we would like to see. If you are an engineer working on something that's more real time, something that needs fast output, to know how long it's going to take for you for a user to click on that button, have a whole flow, create, generate whatever it needs to be, and return, it would be nice to know how many tokens per second so that you can get an idea on how long loading speeds would be. And you can see here that you can do a lot more with the 4.1 that you cannot do on the Nano and on the Mini. Looking at this, Emric, what would be your go-to model if you use this in your app? Do you use OpenAI's API?
No, I am not using OpenAI APIs for now. But I would say that's actually useful to see these new models. And I think they could actually fit into my workflow, and specifically about the speed. Like I was really mentioning 2.5 Pro being really good on the Google side, but as a thinking model, the latency is way too high. Here, I think the models are not thinking, and you're able to get like amazing speed directly. So if you have like a complex workflow, I think like 4.0 mini here would be like a sweet spot. It would be a sweet spot because it's still really relatively intelligent. I should try it myself. I would probably need to do more benchmarking, but like if it's able to sort and read documents, it's able to understand videos, it's understand to read statistics. And I think OpenAI was always good at that. It might be actually a good contender.
Right here, I'm putting side by side the contenders here that actually got the bump. These are the two models to focus on, 4.1 and 4.0 mini. 4.1 nano is the new fast model that you should be using in your app. You have a cheaper input, you have a cheaper output, cheaper cached input, faster model, same intelligence, same modality, and you have a knowledge cutoff that is around 6 months, 7 months more than the other. The window is massive compared to, it's a 10x window for a small model. It is in every way better than your GPT-4.0 mini. So if you use GPT-4 mini for any of your tasks already, that was a cheap and easy to use model, switch over to Nano. Immediately you'll be saving money and you'll get better responses. One thing that I don't understand is why do they keep these models too long? I know that you're supposed to sunset everything. Wouldn't it be better if they sunsetted if they could give you an option to always upgrade to the next model and reroute you to the newest, cheapest model? I know that a lot of flows were built on the mini, but still, man, I don't know. What do you think?
So I just want to comment on that. Like, so right now Google is at 2.5 in terms of model, and at some point they had the 1.5. It was a good model for the time, but like it's like already old. They recently sunsetted these models, but I swear you still see in the forums people that had like their workflow working well with the previous model. Their prompt were like customed for the specific model, and sometimes the prompt of like this new model and this old model is different. So your app, if you just switch the model, won't work immediately the same. I have an example. I am parsing a lot of JSON in Redwitch, and this JSON was parsed not the same way from the new model and the previous model, because the previous model was too stupid and was doing assumption, and the new model actually was smarter and was doing less assumptions. So I had a lot of breakages by just switching the model. And like for your company that is working and that needs to be available 24/7, it's really nice to still have the old model where your workflow is working while you are iterating with the new model.
I think that that is actually a new job right there. We say that a lot of people are going to lose their job. What about the guys who go in, the plumbers, the pipeline guys who come in and just rectify the prompts? These are the prompt engineers. So yeah, go ahead.
Just the prompt engineering, like for long we heard a lot like that prompt engineering would be the new job, but actually I think it's not that true, because I think the model requires less and less prompting skills. I think you can ask something quite stupid and the models are getting like your intention way better recently. So it's funny
There's a big
because
debate on that. I would say that it depends the use case. If you are in a knowledgeable field, you might need someone who knows a lot to get the right stuff out of the model. So it really depends on your use case. What do you think?
because I personally don't have a good example. That's true. That I'm getting back to my example of the JSON. You still need to like give to the model like an explanation, the schema, an example. So all of this still exists, but I think the newest model are like getting way smarter. I could just give a schema and they would like mostly understand even like what you want to prompt from it. I actually don't have a good example, but I have this feeling that you need less to like put an immense prompt with like a ton of info because the model understands your intention more and more, specifically the thinking ones.
Let me get into the second comparison, which is super important. It might be bigger than the GPT mini. It is the GPT-4.0 compared to the GPT-4.1. Now, we can see that the intelligence is higher by 1 point, the speed stays the same, the modalities stay the same, and the price goes down by 50 cents, as well as the output price that goes down 20. Continuing, the window goes up by 10x, and the output tokens goes up 2x. The knowledge cutoff is now June 2024. This model, if you were using GPT-4, your pipelines, switch it over to 4.1 when you can. You're going to save some money, 20% costs on that bill, and you're going to get maybe 50% more money from your clients who are going to enjoy your product 5 times more, maybe. Again, this has nothing to do with benchmarking. This is what they report. This is subjective to internal OpenAI talk. It has nothing to do with how people are actually using the models. So be aware of that. It might actually break all of your flows.
I think you're touching a good point. I don't know if you've seen during the presentation, but they now only benchmark their models against their older models. Like they are actually not benchmarking their models against other models. Like you didn't have any info or benchmark against Sonnet. You didn't have now about against Google, against DeepSeek. They are becoming a little bit like Apple. They are like, our brand is enough. We don't really need to look at the competition anymore.
I don't like it as much because all these models have different usages, and you should not think that you are the one model for everything. I think that we're looking at Grok for news and more real-time things. We're looking at Sonnet for more of the coding. We're looking at Google's VO for the video stuff. You need to compare to the others, otherwise you end up slacking behind.
No, but I mean, also, you're not stupid. You're reading, like you're looking at the conference, and one of the things you're asking yourself immediately, specifically you as a developer, like you want when you're looking at the API, you immediately want to see, like, is it as good as Sonnet? Is it as good as, like, you all have your need, and you're actually already using a model, and like OpenAI just comparing to OpenAI is not giving you any insightful information. I think one of the things that we used to understand immediately was the performance of Sonnet of 4.1 on SweBench. Like SweBench was our way to understand, is it good enough for Cursor as an example. So they should keep going back on the benchmark and benchmarking against the other models, even if sometimes it looks bad. Also, so them like I really disliked they compared 4.1 to GPT-4.0 of November last year. So instead of like comparing to 4.0 like of March, they compare to 4.0 of like November last year. That's a shady move. I don't like it. They should stop doing this.
Yeah, it's when you don't have it rings when you don't have much to say. Let's compare to GPT-2. We've gotten so far, haven't we, right? That brings me to another point that you brought up earlier, is the way to benchmark code has now got a different comparison. Git diff is the new way to benchmark coding skills. So you have general code creation, and then you have understanding a code base that already exists and making modifications. And those are now two separate ways to benchmark code. What do you have to say about that, Emmerich?
Oh yeah, you're totally right. Like this is exactly one of the things I did like with OpenAI. I think they are popularizing this idea that there is two types of benchmark. The benchmark where you just generate the code base from zero. But this is useful for some people. Like as an example, if you have an app that is generating code bases, okay. But most of the people that are generating code nowadays are using it in IDE, like Cursor. And knowing the performance specifically of the ability to your model to actually create a diff, like create like you have the code and then you're modifying it to adding the feature, is super useful because you're saving on inference, and that's exactly the thing you want. You don't want to recreate something and adapt We've all done that. We add something into ChatGPT and then we copy paste, we struggle. Something that is even better is like the ability for the model to immediately do the modification to your code base, and it works. This is important, and I'm really glad that OpenAI is pushing it like forward.
They are moving with the way people are using the app, which is super important. Using the model, sorry. We use diff. We don't generate new code every time. Now, there is a debate whether, now that code is free, should you create every single time you have a problem? Now it's a bit more feasible than before, but still, diff is definitely the way to build software today. We have Git. We don't create a service a day.
No, you could theoretically create a service a day. There's no worries about that. But how we do software nowadays, still, we use diff.
We can get into that one on a separate episode. We had a very, very long call between each other about how to structure an app for AI coding, AI vibe coding, and how you can today generate a code base every time you need something. Let's say that you need a service that does IMAP. You generate a service that does mail IMAP receiving, and then you generate another code base for IMAP sending, and then you generate another code base that does API work. And then let's say that your app changes. All you have to do is generate another code base that does everything that the first one did, passes all the tests and passes more tests. That way you're always creating. You're not diffing. You're not constrained to old code and perishable legacy shit code that you need to maneuver. If you're able to generate a boom server code run, and you have this new thing that passes all the tests, and you're able to get it done in one day every time, there's a debate. There's a debate whether that could be the way that we generate systems in the future. I don't know. I might be onto something, or I might be very stupid.
No, it's funny because you're talking about the backend, but I think this works also for the front end. Let's say every time you do a Google search, instead of having the list of links, you would have a UI that is generated like only for you. Like specifically, you would have a UI to schedule a birthday for your niece or anything. Clearly, you see here that with the LLMs, we can imagine a fully personalized UI. You're talking about fully personalized backend, like regenerating backend on the go. You could also regenerate UI on the go, and getting something personalized for everybody. Let's say Instagram. Instagram is like this feed, this like super simple feed. Maybe Instagram could like have a different feed, like with different icons, different like places on the UI and everything. I think this is interesting. We're going to see more of it, that's for sure.
One thing that we did see, which made me smile when we were looking at this news earlier, we had I want to say he's a friend. I met this guy in Austin, the CEO of Windsurf. We are going to try to get him onto the pod. We met him during a what's the Glean meeting in South by Southwest. You know, us tech guys, we all hang around the cool people. Whenever there's something that's cool, we love to jump and bring the tech bros and make it a tech conference. So we saw that this what's his name?
Aaron. It's Aaron. Yeah, Aaron. We actually asked him to like be on the pod, and it's funny because he decided to go on another pod. He decided to go on like the keynote of OpenAI instead of us.
He went on to OpenAI's pod. He's going to be a bit harder to get in, but we have his email. We're gonna try to get him on the pod and talk a bit about windsurf and code generation and what's the future about that. So, some more news from the AI world. Canva has dropped a new product that is said to be a game changer. It's called Visual Suite 2.0. It's the biggest launch since 2012. It was unveiled at Canva Create. It is an all-in-one platform blending design, productivity, and AI. The key features include Canva's AI, a voice-enabled conversational chatbot that assists with design tasks, editing photos, generating slide decks, resizing designs, and creating AI images. Canva Sheets, it's a visual spreadsheet tool that will rival Excel and Google Sheets with AI-driven data structuring. and an aesthetic presentation, which might lack in some of those dry products. It integrates with Google Analytics, HubSpot, and Snowflake. We'll see how that gets on. Like a lot of these products, they drop and they flop because Canva, who uses Canva? I'll tell you who uses Canva. You go to WeWork and you go to, there's a corner of that room where there's like 5 girls that are working on really beautiful Instagram stories and visuals and branding. These people are non-technical. They're not coding. They're building the brand image for the company that they work for. That's my opinion. Is that Canva is a branding tool. How are they going to get Excel into this branding tool? If they have enough bank bros, fine fintech 6'5" guys working on Canva, maybe. What do you think?
No, I think you touched something. Like the most important is like there are a lot of launches right now in tech. It's super easy to build new products. So these big companies are all building new products. I don't know. Even IBM has an LLM. Even IBM has fucking AI product. And everyone is launching. And what is the most important is the reception of the public. We're going to talk about other products on this pod. They release, people are talking about it. And the most important is like after 1 week. So if after 1 week people are still using it, yes, this is a successful launch. So I think the idea behind Canva, we already talked about a pod before, is amazing. Being able to have like an easy way to iterate, like specifically for non-technical people, even with voice iterate of like your design. That's amazing. It all depends if people are like paying for it. If people keep using it, we'll see. We'll see.
More products from Canva. Hard to believe. Canva Code allows users to create mini apps, interactive maps, calculators without coding skills, embedding them into their designs. Well, to be honest, I actually think that that's more useful than the Canva sheets because let's say you have a presentation and you want to have an interactive map in the presentation, having the ability to do so is pretty sick. Now, is that AI? No, I don't. There might be AI somewhere in there, but I don't see that.
Whoa, wait, one sec. So you're creating your design with Canva and they are generating you the code for the design, I guess? I'm wondering if it's like actually like AI generated or if it's like the Canva code. I'm actually curious about that. I was not expecting Canva to do code generation. That sounds like, what the fuck?
It's basically a mini app. So you will go into Canva Code, you'll create a calculator, you'll prompt the thing, create a calculator, which is useless because we all have them in our pockets somewhere. We have something that does calculations. And then you integrate that into your Canva slide, and then you make calculations during your presentation in the interactive app. That's how I see this. I haven't tried it. I don't think I will. I'm not the public for this one, nor do I think a lot of those people that I just mentioned before. So I don't know if this one will even be used. I guess they're trying things out. There's also photo editing and background generation, which comes as well, which you're able to retouch images and do AI swap backgrounds, change the mood, the lighting seamlessly. There we go. So that's from Canva. One funny piece of news that I wanted to tell everybody, one funny story that I wanted to bring up here. Emmerich, when was the last time you were on Sora?
I will admit I'm not going on Sora that much. Every time
It's
I'm going
free.
on Sora, it's like I am in a bad fever dream, so I really don't I want to avoid that place.
So I went on Sora. I think to be honest, I clicked below the create conversation in ChatGPT. There's Sora. So if you misclick, you hit Sora. That's how you get to Sora, guys. You do it at 1 a.m. and you're tired and you misclick. And I arrived on there and there's some funny trend that's happening right now. It's so users are now using Sora to send messages to the Sora team. And it's the first time I've seen generative AI used in a way to talk directly to developers and get their message across. Here we have generations from users that get voted up by liking, and you have some like unhappy man saying that he's a plus user and he still can't generate videos. That's hilarious.
You can, instead of going to Riot yourself, you can just generate a video of you going to a Riot this time. My God. Every time you're going to on Sora, this is so random.
There's a lot of stuff going on here. The last time I came on here, there were so many different messages to the Sora team, and it's just hilarious, these trends that are coming. So maybe Sora is the trendsetter for AI generated trends. I love it. I love it. So getting back to some more interesting news, we have 2 points to get into. So let's jump into this, Emmerich, to wrap up the news. I told you there was a lot. Google's Firebase Studio launched last week. It is a cursor rival. It allows you to generate apps from the browser, so no IDE needed, and deploying.
Let me correct you. I think it's not a cursor competitor because cursor is really IDE, so you're going to open code. I think it's more a Lovable competition. Like Lovable is getting big. It's like one of the biggest startup ever, and in Europe specifically. And I think they're trying to compete with Lovable. Like if you look at all the comparison on the web on YouTube, they all compare it with Lovable. And I think it's a good point of comparison because they're trying to address I want to create a full stack app just vibe coding a full stack app.
Interesting way, yeah. I think that Cursor is by itself with Windsurf in the software engineering specter, and the Bolt, the V0s, and the Lovables are in their own space. Someone who works with those products will never touch code. Someone who's already touched code will go most likely to the Cursors and the
Yeah.
Windsurfs.
Yeah.
Have you any insight on this product? I haven't used it myself.
So working at Google, I clearly see that we are cooking. Specifically, we are building a lot of different products. It's amazing to be in this company right now. And Firebase Studio, I think makes sense because initially Firebase was provided to get an easy access to, as an example, databases. There is in Firebase a way to do something like Superbase, like having easy access through API to authentication database. And all the idea is to be able to create apps fast. So if you could even better, like use prompts to immediately connect to a database, immediately connect to authentication, that would be like an amazing combo. Though I would say I looked at presentations, comparison. Right now, Lovable is better, I think. But what's amazing right now is that Google is not only trying to do new things, releasing the things, and they are keep going and iterating on it. Like I think Notebook LM, as an example, at the beginning was something like a tool to just put resources and then creating sort of a chatbot, and then they created you would be able to create a podcast out of it. I think what is really nice right now with Google is they are really trying to iterate and getting better. And maybe Firebase Studio is slightly worse right now, but maybe in 1 month we're going to talk about it. We're going to hear about it way more. So that's at least a good thing that Google is getting into the space. Like it's really a high potential for the future.
I think that creating the same product from different sources generates different products. Overall, you have V0 coming from Vercel, which we know is on the deployment side of code. They've always had no code serverless solutions to get your Next.js app online. They are also the creators of Next.js, and from their standpoint, creating an app is only an extension to deploying your app to their base service, which is serving Next.js solutions. So the generation of code made sense for them as well. And you come up with a different product at the end, a different speciality.
Yeah, you're talking about Vercel. Yeah, Vercel is like the place where Next.js is just a way to bring developers into your ecosystem, and then you bring them on Vercel. Vercel is free when you start, but the moment you start to get traffic, they're really getting all your money.
This brings us into, it's a perfect segue, by the way, Emmerich, perfect segue, into news from Vercel. V0 has a new extension with VS Code. This is, I would say, very interesting to say the least. On X, the speculation is that V0 is expanding to mobile or desktop apps. So V0 is looking to be a standalone app that you can generate on your iPhone, on your desktop, and publish, I guess, a an app from the third-party app. Visual Studio will integrate a plugin where you would be able to connect your V0 account and plug your components straight into your workflow. It's a different way of working than Cursor. You're not generating you're not vibe coding. You're vibing. You create a finished component and you're pulling into your code and doing a lot of manual stuff, I would say. What do you think about this one? Does this sound like something that you would use, Emmerich?
So I think we talked about it a little bit earlier, and the idea is you are generating a component and you're like vibing your component. So you have like this unit of being a component, and then you can immediately add it to your app with npx add. So npx add the ID of your component, and then you can use the component as a unit in your app. I think it's great. Like we talked, I think in previous podcast about the fact that the moment the LLM gets too much context, he's getting lost. If you're able to instead create, like more components being more modularized this way, your app will be more robust. I think here, Versal is addressing the more robust and like the more production ready developers. You have the vibe coders that are more like vibe creating, MVPs. And here, this specific product is specifically for like high-end developers developing finished apps. So yes, it's slightly longer. You will be less fast than like a vibe coder, but you will be more robust, I think. Basically, this is really for more robust workflows, I would say.
I have only one idea that comes to my mind. Who is in the testing space? Who is going to be the LLM testing framework? That is going to be a big one. Imagine, what is it? The storyboard, stuff like that, like testing UI. There must be a product today that generates tests, that analyzes your app, generates tests, and then you can just npx add tests. If that doesn't exist, guys, get onto it because that's a game changer. So we went through all the news this week and it's a mouthful. Super, super happy to test all of this stuff. My favorites here are the 4.1 Nano and Mini. I will be using those from today onwards. They are already available in Cursor. I'm going to check that one out. It is a great way to vibe code at a cheap price compared to your Sonnet. So if you have stupid tasks to do, try that one out with the 4.1. It's going to cost you a lot less. Try the Nano as well. I think that large context is something to give a try. That's my favorite part. Anything that you will try, Emmerich, this week from what we just mentioned?
No, I think I am the same as you. 4.1 sounds like an amazing non-thinking model. And even if I hate their benchmarking strategy, I think it's worth it to try it and see how we can fit in our workflows. And I think it has some spots in some workflows. I'm pretty excited to try it.
That is our takeaway for today. We only did news this week because there was a mouthful. If we missed anything, please send us a DM on Instagram. We're available. You can follow us. We post shorts and best moments of our podcast on Instagram and on YouTube Shorts. We will also look into other places to post this podcast. If you liked it, give it a like, comment, and follow us on Spotify. Follow us on YouTube as well. We will be back next week with a juicy pod. And I'm looking to bring on a cool friend of mine who built something with Cursor. I know you guys love the Cursor-related pods, Cursor-related pod for you guys next week. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for listening. I hope you liked it. We will see you in the next episode.